So our goal today is to solve real-world problems by using properties and in solving equations. Two steps equations, but before that, we'll review a little bit what two steps is. So we have limited our equation solving one step when we're in sixth grade, the single equation to isolate variable. We just do that before. But today we're going to be working on something that we're going to do two steps. But before we start with two steps, do you still remember how to solve problems like x plus 2 equals, I know you know this, let's say equals 7. What is the first step we should do for this? Teresa? You guys will remember how we're gonna do this? When you were in 6th grade, you were taught to solve one-step equation. MD? Anyone? Why are you guys quiet? Malia, go ahead.
7 minus 2?
We do minus to both sides, right? We remembered that we had to do it using inverse operation. So we take away 2 in both sides of equation. So this was 6th grade kind of equation. We don't do two steps in 6th grade, but we're gonna use this idea on how to solve it, right? Then we're gonna go back and check if it's right. So x is 5. So 5 plus 2 equals 7. So we could cancel this out because that's equivalent to 0. So that is the example of one-step equation when we're in 6th grade. Anyway, so here each of the following expressions, we're gonna evaluate them using two steps. So 5x plus 3. 5x means 5 times x plus 3. So if, say, x equals to 4, so we're gonna do 5 times 4 plus 3. So that's gonna give us 20 because 5 times 4 is 20. Yes, that's correct. Plus 3. That gives you 23, right? So we could go straight like that as long as each of the equated term is equivalent to each other. So that's 23, 23, 23. So it's okay to make a straightforward equations. So n divide by 3 minus 1. So two steps. We divide and then we subtract. So it says here that n is 21. So 21 divided by 3 minus 1. So the first step is 21 divided by 3, which is 7. The second step is minus 1. So you get an answer of 6. So two steps. So we're gonna be using that kind of idea in solving two steps equations like today, right? A very simple one. At least you're a little bit ahead of what you're doing, guys. So we've been working on writing, evaluating expressions. We have been doing that. So at least we could start up a little bit ahead. So let's consider 4x plus 8 equals 36. So I'm gonna read here 4x plus 8. My god, that music song outside is loud. Equals 36. When we do order of operation, right? We do PEMDAS as you said. We do parentheses, exponent. You multiply, you divide, you add and so you subtract. When we do solve equation, we do the reverse. Instead of multiplying first and dividing first, we do add and subtract first. That's our process of gonna do that is what we call inverse, right? Or the opposite operation. So inverse of that particular operation. So since we're gonna go back and inverse at the same time, here we're gonna do, instead of 4, we divide both sides by 36. We don't do that. We subtract 8 on both sides first. That's our first step. We're going backwards. And then since that is 0, we could cancel it out. So that's going to be 4x equals 36 minus 8 is how much? How much is 36 minus 8? That's going to be what? 28. I forgot to tell you that our goal here is to find if x is equal to 7. So we get rid of it until we get x correct. So now we have two steps, right? First step will be subtract first. If that's addition, then you subtract. Then this is 4x. 4x means 4 times x. So the opposite of times is divide, correct? So divide both sides by 4. We divide both sides by 4. It should be both sides all the time to keep the equation true. That equal sign true at all times. Now 4 divided by 4 is 1. So we just gotta have x over here. And then 28 divided by 4, that gives you 7. So with that said, that x equals 7 is the solution for this problem. We'll prove it is correct. Alright? So to prove it is correct, we're gonna go back. So originally, the one side of equation is 4x plus 8. That should be equivalent to 36. Right here, 36. Let's see. So we have 4 times, we have now 7 plus 8. Let's see if that is equivalent to 36. So 4 times 7 is 28 plus 8. How much is that be, guys? Eventually, that ends up with 36, which is true. So it means, yeah, so it means 7 that is x that is equal to 7 is correct as a solution for this equation. Want to take a little picture for that if you want, or just, I recorded this, so I'm gonna post again this video in our classroom. Question for this one. Oh, here we go. Next example. So we'll just do example A, B, D, and E. We'll work on it together first. Then you guys could practice on the classwork that I gave in Google Classroom. So here, this is 5x plus 2 equals 32. So obviously, we're gonna do the backward way. So we're gonna do subtract 2 both sides. So that's minus 2 here and minus 2 here. So we know that that 2 minus 2 is 0. So I just canceled it out. I don't need that. Since 5x doesn't have anything here, so I put 5x down here. Then that is 0, so I put equal sign here. Then 32 minus 2 gives me 30. So that will be our first step, minus 2. The next step, this is 5 times x. So that's times. The opposite of times is divide, because we do inverse operation, right? So that's gonna be 5. We're gonna do 5. Why are we doing 5, by the way? Why can't I divide it with any other number?
Because it's the greatest common factor.
That will be the greatest common factor between 5x and 30. That's true. Anybody else a different idea? Why am I using 5 to divide both sides? MD? Malia? You guys have no idea? Greatest common factor, Vincent said. Oh, I like it, Vincent. Vincent, you were trying to. Because Eka said we need to get x alone. So we need to isolate x. So 5x, there's 5 attached to x. I don't want that. Like, we don't need that. We need only x. So what will I do with 5 times x to make it 1? So definitely we could divide 5 by 5 to get 1. But since we're doing that on one side of equation, we have to do in the other side of equation. So we could cancel this out. That's gonna be x equals 30 divided by 5 gives you 6. So when your teacher asks you, what are you doing?
It is.
So again, the word is isolate. You're gonna isolate the variable right here. So by isolating it means you're making it stand by itself or make it alone, right? That's what you guys have been saying. So here, another example, 7n minus 3 equals 25. Since it's minus 3, we do the opposite. You do plus 3, but it should be on both sides. You don't forget that because you always have to keep that equal sign true. So that is 7n over here equals, since that is 0, I'm not going to write plus 0. 25 plus 3 is 28. And the 7 times n, the opposite is divide. And we
7.
Yes, that's correct. Divide by 7. And what will be your answer? N will be what?
H equals 4.
Equals 4. And if you want to check if you got that right, so 7 times 4 minus 3, is it 25? So 7 times 4 is 28 minus 3. Yeah, that's 25. So let's look at the D because this has different form of term. It is fraction. So here we're going to say x divided by 3 plus 7. We could read that x divided by 3 or x over 3. But since we're thinking of operation, we could say divide by 3. So the first step we should do is step 1 is minus 7, both sides. Right? So since that is x over 3 or x divided by 3, I'm still going to copy that because I did not do anything about it yet. So 7 minus 7 is 0. So I don't need to write 0. Then 11 minus 7 is how much? How much?
4.
Huh? 4? How do you remember, guys, order of operation? Ratio, the cross multiply and divide. This has over 1. Or you could do x over 3 or x divided by 3. The opposite of divide is multiply. But there's a shortcut we could always do, right? We love shortcuts. I love shortcuts. So we just cross multiply. This has over 1, if we still remember. So I could do multiply x and 1. I could give it will give me x. And then I could multiply 3 and 4. That will give us 12.
12.
Yeah. We just cross multiply. If you don't want to do multiply both sides. Let's do this one by multiplying both sides with instead of cross multiplying. Emmy, it's okay. So now this is minus 2. Let me erase that a little bit over here. Alright, so that's minus 2. So you do opposite, so that's plus 2. And that's plus 2. It should be in between those, okay? Right, so in between those two. Then it's just like I wrote it too far. So c over 4, so c divide by 4, or c over 4. This is 0. And this is gonna be 3 plus 2 is 5. Now, it says we do the opposite, right? So that's c divided by 4. The opposite of divide is times, correct?
Times like.
So I'm gonna times this by 4 over here. And I'm gonna times it by 4. Instead of doing cross multiply, I could times it by 4. It's the same thing. Then it's gonna be c4. Then that's gonna be 4c over 4. And this gonna be 5 times 4, which is 20. Now we know that we could cancel this out because that's equivalent to 1. It's like more steps than cross multiply. And then your answer is c equals 20. There you go. You could do just cross multiply to make it shortcut, but it's the same story, the same thing, the same process. But if you want to stick to the rule that do the opposite, to do the inverse. So since this is divided by 4, the inverse is multiplied by 4. You could do that, but make sure it's always on both sides of equations. Question. No? You guys agree? Very nice. So okay, with that.
Yeah.
So since you don't have a question, we could go to your classroom. Alright, and there is a task in the Google Classroom that I give you right here. Let me give me like a moment. Equations day 1. And
I don't get the first question.
Oh, which one? In this one? We'll work together. So work using Kami, peanut writer, you could do the loose leaf paper. You know the rules. You know how we work on this. So here is the questions. This is just usually the first few questions is the lesson that we learned before, right? So for the first one, which of the following value of x plus 3, 8x plus 3 when x is equivalent to 4? Remember our lesson the other day when we say evaluate expression? So if x is 4,
but in total it's like 36.
So but 8 plus 4 is how much? How much is 8 plus 4? I mean 8 times 4, stand corrected. How much is 8 times 4?
Times 4 is 32.
Okay, 8 times 4 is 32 plus 3. That gives you what?
Give you 36, but there's no answer.
But how did it become 36 when you say 30? Wait, 8 times 4. Wait, you said 8 times 4 plus
32.
3 is not 36. It's not 36, Fiona.
Oh yeah.
So you figured it out? So that's gonna be 8 times 4 plus 3, right? So you know that this is 32 plus 3. So you know the answer, correct? We just have when sometimes we do a mental math, we always like think it differently. But when we write it down, I usually recommend to write it down. So go ahead. And here you solve an equation. For number 4, I just want you to do ABC. Don't do the DE. And for number 5, just do ABC. Alright, so don't do the E to G. Because it's the same thing. It's just like repetition. So I want you to do...
So we only do number 5, A, B, and C?
No, you do everything else except for number 4, you don't do this part. You don't do this. And for number 5, you don't do that. So because it's just the same. Look, A and E is the same.
Okay, so number 5, we only do A, B, and C, right?
Correct. And for number 4 also, only A, B, and C. Good? Alright, I'm gonna check on you in a minute. And if you really have a question, just let me know. Alright, guys? Alright, work on it. I'll be quiet.